by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hey everyone, salut tout le monde. Welcome to Game Over Montreal. All right, that was a bit of a crazy game. I think you all have a lot of thoughts here. We're going to get to it. Obviously, disappointing loss from Montreal Canadiens. Good pushback in the end. We saw a lot of good things on the power play, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about that top line. But before we get into that, the first topic, the first segment, I think is what everyone wants to talk about. It was the refereeing. And our good friend in Montreal, one of the favorite referees in the history of hockey, Chris Lee, was at it again. So I am the host this time. I'm joined by, you know him very well. He's the person who masterminded this whole Game Over thing, looking over the empire of Game Overs is Andrew Berkshire. Before I unmute him, I want to get just a shout out to everyone in the chat. Really appreciate you. So let us know what you're thinking. We'll incorporate that in that show, and you're gonna be part of it. If you have any questions, any comments, throw it in the chat. Make sure to like it, because the more likes you get, the more my bosses will want to pay me. And my boss is the guy who's my co-host tonight. All right, before we really get going, a quick word from our sponsors. Want to bet? You can do it at Sports Interaction Canada Sportsbook. The NFL's in full swing. The World Series is ongoing. By the way, the Phillies are they're winning a lot, 7-0 versus the Astros right now. Obviously, the hockey season is well underway. So you can bet pregame and live in play. And there are also a ton of prop bets. For example, will Cole Caulfield outscore Austin Matthews this year? And Cole Caulfield is definitely in the lead right now. If he does, you get 6-1 odds on that. It might have actually gone up since the last time I checked. So this is made by Canadians for Canadians. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com SDPN. Ontario only, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Andrew, how are you, buddy? What did you think about that game? That was interesting on a lot of levels. We were talking right before we got going that some losses you don't have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about this time, and we're going to talk about everyone's favorite referee, Chris Lee. What were your thoughts on that? I thought he blew about 50 calls, which is roughly his average. But honestly, I think it's almost gotten embarrassing how poor of a referee Chris Lee is.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I think of Chris Lee, I still think of one moment, and it was a game that I attended with my father-in-law on a whim. It was, not to get too real here, but it was the day that he buried his own father. We went to his funeral, and then on a whim, he was like, you know what? We're going to go to a Canadiens game. I love the Canadiens, and we're going to sit in the Reds. And it was Habs versus Pittsburgh, and in the dying seconds, Scott Gomez tied the game. But Chris Lee, Gomez. Scott Gomez, yes, Scott Gomez. Okay, that's how long ago this was.
One of his rare goals.
Yeah, but Chris Lee, while Gomez was shoveling the puck into the net, said that he intended to blow the whistle because he lost sight of the puck. Literally.
I remember that because it was intent to blow, which is pretty funny.
Yep.
Like when you're looking at Chris Lee there, because he blew that call real bad.
Yeah, and I saw the Habs Reddit Twitter account was going off on Chris Lee during the game that apparently he's really hates the Habs. I don't know. Maybe he does. I think he's just not a very good ref, and he made some choice decisions tonight. I don't think it's fair to blame him for that third goal because everyone's ripping him for not calling the high stick on the ice. I don't know how you call that on the ice. You know what I mean? It was so fast, and as much as I personally think that it was 100% a high stick and shouldn't have counted, I kind of love that Rossi got credit for it because it was such a smart play to stick to it, and Kaprizov as well, smart play to stick there, and poor David Savard sliding. What a great initial block, right?
It's funny because I criticize him a lot just for being slow, but his defensive play has been quite solid lately, Savard, even though the numbers don't represent it. Yeah.
But that play kind of shows his limitations, right? It shows he can make that great first defensive play, but in order to do it, oftentimes he's putting himself out of position. There's another play later in the game where he made a really great block or a stick check on the side of the net, but then he just completely lost his man because once he stops to make a play, he can't get going enough fast enough to keep with the play. And it's like, I'm not trying to dog on David Savard because I feel like this year is what I expected of him last year, where he makes these great defensive plays, but like that's really all that's left in the tank for him. But he's not a top pair guy. He's just stuck doing that job right now.
Which is, we have to bring that up every time. If you look at the numbers, they're like, that pairings numbers are brutal, but I mean, they're well in over their head. But I'm not done complaining about Chris Lee, because let's talk about that Habs Reddit study they did. Now, this isn't just a person doing like a 2-second study. They took a look at 20 years of data, basically. Okay, like that's a ton, and they compared it to other teams. And the Montreal Canadiens get 13%, if I remember correctly. Andrew, you might be able to check that, but 13% more penalties under Chris Lee, and their win-loss, which you can't necessarily blame him for that, but it's about -8% or -9%. There's only one other team in the entire NHL that gets more intent to blow than the Habs, and that is the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, they actually won most of their games under Chris Lee, so that, you know, we can't always blame the ref, but I just don't see, like, that Gallagher play. That was the top egregious. 3 funniest muggings, because don't forget, Gallagher's gotten mugged many times before, but that was outrageous. And you know what? That was because it was Brendan Gallagher. If it was any other player, and you know me, Andrew, I'm not a big blame the refs guy, but if that was any other player, I don't think that he would have gotten 4 or 5 interference calls missed on the same shift.
Yeah. There was, at the very least, there should have been 3 calls that he drew on that shift, because there was the Spurgeon cross checks repeatedly, right? The ridiculous amount of cross checks.
Which, by the way, that reminds me. Do you remember? He was sitting there right there when Nick Suzuki got punched in the face in the playoffs. He was literally, that was the exact same thing. He was about 3 feet away, and he's like, "Oh, there's the penalty." Anyways.
Yeah, well, and Spurgeon, I don't know if he like grew up hating the Canadians or something. I know he grew up in Alberta, but like he was the guy last year who brained Dvorak, remember? And didn't get any look from NHL player safety, nothing. Dvorak missed like a huge chunk of games with concussion, and it was like a very clear like blindside headshot away from the play. Like Spurgeon, he doesn't like the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know why, but the game got testy because of that. And then after Gallagher recovers from all these cross checks and starts skating out of the zone, I don't know what Minnesota Wild player it was, but someone tried to take out his knee. And then as he gets to the blue line, a guy reaches out.
One or two guys tried to take out his knees. Like it was like back to back. It was like he pinballed.
Well, the second one was a shot in like the shoulder. Like it was interference, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, sorry,
you got to call something.
All these missed calls. Yeah, that's. But do you think, honestly, because we've talked about this before off air, I really don't believe refs have a bias in general. I think in general they're just incompetent all the time. Okay, so that's like, I know it's kind of insulting, but I do believe there is legitimately a bias against Brendan Gallagher in this league, because you're looking at a guy that should be drawing more like. When it's going well, when it's not Chris Lee on the ice, he draws more penalties than anyone else, and then Chris Lee gets there and nothing happens. Honestly, I think I don't want to be exaggerating here, but it's pretty rough to assign Chris Lee to a Montreal Canadiens game. However, in the chat right now, people are saying, "Hey, we had Chris Lee in our game last time," not even Habs fans, and he was bad there too. So maybe I'm wrong, but it really feels like, and especially Lee has a target on Gallagher's back.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some refs who dislike certain players more than others, whether they've gotten something over on them or they just don't like their style of play. Like, I remember talking to like some people. Yeah, there's some of that too. Like, I remember talking to some people behind the scenes like years and years ago, and they were saying like one of the reasons why the Canadiens couldn't draw a lot of calls one year is because they had like a lot of small players, and a lot of refs feel like, because a lot of refs and linesmen are former large players, because, you know, they're guys that have to break up fights, stuff like that. And they don't really have as much respect for small players unless they're like fighting through stuff. So if you're getting taken down and you're not moving your feet really hard and making it very obvious that you're trying to get past, you're not going to get the call. So guys like David Desharnais, who probably should have drawn twice as many calls throughout his career from being hauled down, because he's not a great skater, they would just be like, well, he just fell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, if a small guy takes down a big guy, well, he obviously cheated. Yeah, right? So then you get a lot of like, I didn't actually see that, but I'm going to assume that calls. So there's that's folded in as well. And also, I feel like refs, as much as I don't think they're necessarily that great at their jobs, I feel like they're also kind of hooped, because the league has such like very unclear rules for a lot of this stuff. The game is super fast, and the players are getting bigger all the time, so the ice seems to get smaller. They have to
It
worry
is a
about
tough
getting
job. Like, we have to say, it's a
extremely
legitimately difficult job that Chris Lee is terrible at. Yeah.
yes, and I think they need off ice officials. Like that's I've been beating this
Okay.
drum for years now. They need off ice officials who have a mic in the ref's ear who can talk to them live and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, you missed this guy," and like
Yeah,
they can blow the
absolutely.
play dead.
And that's exactly because there's Wild fans in the chat right now. By the way, we ruined someone's birthday. Whose birthday was it that we ruined? Sorry, Kevin Boisvert, bonne fête quand même. But there's Wild fans in the chat right now saying, like, listen, like we're missing calls too. For example, Eric Sinek, I
For
watch him a
sure.
lot. This guy gets like lumber all the time. So one way, and we're going back to your suggestion here, is you do exactly like rugby. It's exactly what you suggested. They have a person in the tent. The referee calls it down. It's a hot mic. So the entire arena hears it. He says, we're reviewing that play. Then he pulls himself completely out of the decision. And it goes to a person who's there watching it. He explains it, takes 2 minutes, explains exactly what happens. No one complains. It's the best system in sports. If rugby can do it, then hockey can do it, right? You don't want to abuse of it, but why aren't we going, why don't we have someone there that 100% can't control the play? Because whenever referees say they don't want to be part of the play, well, by doing that, you're actually making yourself part of the game, right?
100%. And I feel like there's a narrative that goes around like, oh, refs don't want to give up control of the play. Like I don't believe that most refs in the NHL don't want to get the call right most of the time. Sure, there's going to be times where they're emotional because they're human and they just want to get a guy, right? They got caught, like somebody was an obvious dive, but they missed it. Later on in the game, they're going to try to get that guy. Sure. But I feel like most refs, most officials in general, want to maintain a level of integrity in the game. So having off-ice officials, I feel like it'd be a great way to integrate officials in training, right? Yeah, so like you want to be a rookie official in the NHL, maybe you work like 30 games on the ice, but you work 100 games off the ice, right? That could be a great way to hone your eyes for the NHL
You're
game.
You're making way too much sense now.
Like, way too much sense. Mind, I know. And I will say, like, both of us, I think we talked about it before we went live. Neither of us are saying the Habs lost this game because of officiating.
No. And the Wild were the better team. The Wild were the better team, in my opinion, for high danger chances. Absolutely, yeah.
And I feel like the Wild, like, they also got the bounces too, right? Like, they were extremely dangerous off the counterattack. And the few chances that they did get that were, like, extremely great chances, they buried them, right? And Kaprizov is just insanely good.
How about, and I think I'm probably done complaining about the referees, but look into the rugby thing seriously because it's fun. How about that tip? Because am I exaggerating saying that Kaprizov tip was one of the nicest deflections that's ever happened in the NHL? Like,
no, it's fantastic.
Boldy whipped it in there. He whipped in a saucer. Like, it blew my mind, and it was not just up; it was in the corner. Like, that was one of the nicest deflections. I don't know why everyone's not going crazy on Twitter right now because that was fantastic.
Yeah, when it happened at speed, like I thought I saw the puck go in, but I wasn't 100% sure. And even like watching on the replays, I was watching TSN and they were like, I don't know, that hit the crossbar. And no, that's in. Like it was so fast in and out, but it was like, what a friggin' tip and what a pass as well. Like I got to give the Wild their flowers because they played a great game.
They absolutely did. And, just to give you an idea, the Canadiens actually had more shot attempts, but the Wild had double the high danger scoring chances. Actually, it was 12-5. So they controlled 70% of the high danger chances. But hey, we knew this was going to be part of it with the Canadiens. Hey, they're still the top team, Canadian team in the Atlantic. So that's important. But we knew there'd be games like this. So what we're going to talk about next, we're going to go into something that was a little bit better for the Montreal Canadiens, I think. And it was something I was ragging on all year. I was saying, hey, like they need to be better here. Stop forcing the puck to Cole Caulfield. So you know what I'm talking about. And that was the power play tonight. Fantastic movement on the power play for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, it was vastly improved. And obviously we saw some shades of that in the previous game. Even like Juraj Slafkovsky, who I think had a bit of a rough night overall. I think he was trying to do too much. On his little bit of power play time, he had like some like puck on a string moments to gain the zone
entry. That zone entry.
It was insane.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'll say that that was something that people were worried about early in dev camp. They're worried he's going to keep his head down. Now, we also can talk about the fact that he should have probably protected himself a little bit better there at the end of the game. But that time and space is doing wonders for Slavkovsky on the power play.
Yeah, it really seems to have given him some confidence, and obviously scoring the game before he got hurt gave him some confidence as well. But he looks like a different player. He's catching up to plays. Like I said, he's probably a little bit behind tonight. I didn't think he was great, but still every game he shows something, right? And that's kind of what you want to see, another extra layer added to his game. So I liked him tonight. I like the power play with Doc and Drouin kind of on the back there a little bit.
The
I know
movement.
They had, it was like Drouin, there's not going to be a shot, right? Which Weidman, there wasn't anyway either, but at least Drouin has like some quick decision making, and I feel like I'm not trying to bash Weidman, but Drouin is obviously a much superior passer.
I'm gonna check this out while you're talking. I don't think Weidman has a shot on the power play this year. Keep going.
Oh, God.
I honestly don't think he hit the net once. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I were him, I wouldn't be shooting it either. It's just the issue that I find with Weidman is like his lateral mobility isn't enough to create space up top. So he just kind of, it just goes back and forth to him and Caulfield very high. And there's no opportunity for Caulfield to strafe low. But what I liked about the power play tonight is that they weren't just always going for Caulfield. Having Doc on that top power play unit gives them another playmaker who can fill that role that Suzuki usually fills on that right wall, which allowed Suzuki to go into the bumper spot, which created a goal and another fantastic scoring chance earlier in a power play. So I am loving that little decision-making process by either Burrows or St. Louis or whoever to shake up the who is on the power play units there. I feel like it's not afraid to go with
5 forwards either. That's I'm loving the 5 forwards, loving it.
And I think it worked better with Drouin on the back than Hoffman. Obviously, Hoffman has a better shot, but Drouin's a better distributor and maybe a little bit quicker of a skater.
Yeah.
But there's still a significant risk with doing that. I don't think either of them are very good at necessarily handling the defensive responsibility of being last man back.
Which brings us to Ian Boisville's comment. We got a lot of Boisvilles in the chat tonight. Jordan Harris gestures wildly at Jordan. Now, I've been beating the Jordan Harris drum here since the beginning of the year because this guy has mobility. If anyone's seen him at Northeastern, he can walk Northeastern, sorry. He can walk the line. Like that's something that he's done quite well. 2 years ago, he had something like 25 power play points in 30 games. Like he did it quite well in the NCAA, and he's kind of like Weidman. You're not going to get a ton of heavy clappers from the point, but he can get the puck on net, and I think he can distribute the puck as well as Weidman. And I maybe I'm overhyping him, but I really would like to see. I don't mind the 5 forwards, but I'd like to see Harris get an opportunity on the power play.
Yeah, at least second unit, and that might be coming relatively quickly with Edmondson, reportedly coming back to the lineup quickly, because I think Weidman is the first guy that they're going to have to take out. Just he's not on the top unit power play. He's not a defensive stalwart at even strength. I feel like Arbor Xhekaj brings more to the table. And I mean, speaking of Arbor Xhekaj, tonight, I swear to God, it was just making me like his response to Slav taking that hit. I don't think he actually did anything that is like really against the rules. He's just stronger than Rossi. Like it was just bullying, right?
Yeah. It was
100% and the other guy getting in the face like. I don't think he was going to fight Rossi. I feel like he was just like, I'm going to push you down because I can. I loved it.
He wouldn't. He's not that kind of guy. He would never fight Rossi, but you saw the guy that grabbed him just looked at his shoes. You know how quickly he looked at his skates when he grabbed Xhekaj? It was like, please don't hurt me,
Well, and as soon as the ref had Xhekaj and was like moving him away, there was another Minnesota Wild guy who came and was trying to play tough guy yelling while the ref was holding him back. And I was like, yeah, get used to it, Xhekaj. This is going to be your whole career.
Just like Darcy Tucker did to Francis Bouillon that one time, and then Bouillon reached over and piff, direct dans le nez. That was a direct quote from Yvon Pedneau. So I'm liking the change in the power play because, again, to me, that was one of the biggest issues for the Montreal Canadiens. And I also think their penalty kill is actually quite awful. I know there's been a lot of praise towards it. Listen,
Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault have been great, right?
We can't take them out of the equation, but they're bleeding high quality chances against and shots. So the special teams are kind of getting better, but there's still a lot of work to do there. Finally, what we're going to do now in the last segment, and it's something that I've been thinking about for a while. I think Martin St. Louis has been thinking about it for a while, is who's the best person on that top line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Tonight, we saw Kirby Dach there. It was his second game. And let me just check the numbers real quick. But I think they controlled about 80% of the chances there. 78% of the chances. 75% expected goals for. They had a ton of high danger chances. Just a ton.
Yep.
It's ridiculous they didn't score. What was your overall take on Kirby Dach on that top line?
I thought in the first period, there were 3 different moments where he wasn't thinking fast enough for what they were doing, where either Suzuki or Caulfield had put a layup pass to him, right in a great area. And he was just like, oh, and by the time he went to shoot it, it was past him. But everything else, every tiny little thing that you could critique, I absolutely love him on that line. I think he is fitting perfectly. His battle level along the walls to keep plays alive. His decision making to go up high. He just is always in the right spot. That line has gone from being caved in every single night but scoring to dominating now with him on the line and also scoring.
The goals, and like tonight, for example, no goals, but that could have easily been a 2-goal, outing for that line.
Yeah, I mean, Caulfield had 8 shots. There's not going to be many games where Cole Caulfield has 8 shots.
A lot of good ones too there, a lot of good, he actually had time, a few, I thought Fleury, and I don't want to take anything away from him, but I thought he looked a little vulnerable tonight. Now,
yeah,
I know that
it was
sounds
weird.
Classic Fleury. I know he only let in 1 goal, but I thought it would have been a good night for Caulfield to score, but unfortunately Fleury, I don't know, he's got this voodoo, man.
Yeah, I think my takeaway from watching Fleury tonight is I think he made a great first save, but if the Canadiens were able to maintain some pressure after shots, he would have got lit up.
Yeah.
But they weren't able to do that. And credit to the Minnesota Wild defense for clearing ththose rebounds and maintaining control of the front of the crease. The Canadiens just weren't able to penetrate there tonight. But Fleury looked a little bit shaky at times, but he was always making the first save. So whatever.
That's what matters.
That's his job.
All you have to do. Absolutely. And I'm going to actually elaborate on this comment, this topic tomorrow, Montreal Hockey Now. So keep an eye on it. But overall, I think we can say, and we're going to get to some questions in the chat. I think that would be a cool way to close up the show because we got some fun questions here. I'd have to say between Monahan and Anderson, and who's the other person I'm forgetting that got a tryout on the top line? Anderson, Monahan, Dach, and someone else. But far and away, Dach has been the better fit, in my opinion, stylistically. And he's better on the cycle with these guys. It unlocks Suzuki's playmaking as well, gives him more options. When Anderson was on that line, he wasn't paying. It was just a guy that wasn't paying attention to anyone else. He was flying up and down, and you're removing a lot of the value. It was all rush attempts. But with you have Dach there, and I think Monahan was good at it too, but more sustained pressure, more sustainability. And that goes back to what you said. They were scoring goals before, but now they're scoring goals and they're producing great underlying numbers. So to me, I think you keep Dach there for a nice little while. Give him an extended audition.
Yeah, at least 10 games. See if this holds.
Oh,
because
Hoffman.
If they can create
Hoffman. Sorry, the chat reminded me it was Hoffman. I'm sorry, Mike. My bad.
That never really works.
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Keep him there for at least 10 games. See if this maintains. Because if you can, I know some people are concerned. They acquired Dach to be a center. Oh well.
Who cares?
If he fits better on the wing, at least short term, that's fine.
It gives Suzuki a face-off option, a better face-off option in the offensive or defensive zone. It also adds a left shot in there. So, anyways, the opposite of Suzuki and Caulfield, which opens up more shooting opportunities. Obviously, Dach doesn't shoot a ton. I'd like to see him more. But here's what the one criticism I think legitimately you can make is the face-offs haven't been great. But when you look at Dach's numbers, the faceoffs have been quite irrelevant. Isn't that the lesson here? Is that even if he's losing faceoffs, he's still been pretty dominant when he's on the ice. So certain faceoffs are important, but that to me shouldn't keep him from out of playing important roles, maybe even taking those faceoffs when Suzuki's on the ice. Because if you do want him as a center, and like you said, not that important, he's gotta learn. And the only way to be a good center in the NHL, as you know, Andrew, is taking 1,000 faceoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Suzuki, right? He was not a very good faceoff guy for the first 3 years of his career. All of a sudden, now he's like pretty solid this year, right? Still taking tough faceoffs against top competition, and he's over 50%, I believe, still this season. Canadians controlled most of the faceoffs in this game. You know, they've got Monahan there to learn off of. He's really solid in the circles. Really so is Dvorak. So they're a surprisingly good faceoff team after being a terrible faceoff team for the last several years. But it's fun. Yeah. I know there was a question, or there's a guy here, I think is a Leafs fan, who's trolling because he's talking about handshake line respect. That's his name. You remember when they were like, well, we got respected in the handshake line against the Lightning.
That was one of the most embarrassing quotes I've ever heard. Go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, he was saying
that's a great name. Handshake line respect.
Yeah, he was asking if the Habs fans would prefer like making the playoffs or getting a high draft pick. And everyone's like, what are you talking about playoffs? He's like, well, they're trending to be just outside the playoffs, so no high draft pick. Yeah. Here's the thing though, they're not actually trending for that. That's how the games have gone so far. But there's a reality check here, right? The Canadiens are currently one of the luckier teams in the league in terms of their results versus their process. At even strength, they're 11th last in expected goals. And in all situations, because their special teams are still not good, I believe they're, fourth last. So things will
They allow the most high danger shots on the penalty kill too. Like there's a lot of red flags here.
Like there is going to be times this year where it's going to be tough to scrape out a win. What people are enjoying about this team is that they're not shitty to watch while they will probably lose. Like tonight, they lost 4-1. I was entertained pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a difference between being bad to watch and not having a plan for the future. But I think it's been pretty clear here that Kent Hughes is going to stick to the plan. There's no fast forwarding it. They're going to try to do it the right way. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it allows fans to take losses like this and kind of, take the positives. Go pull, like we're talking about Jack Eye being fun. We're talking about, by the way, I wanted to mention Jordan Harris. I mean, isn't that an amazing story as well? I could talk about him for another 20 minutes. So there's been a lot of fun to watch here. And I think you can see already the glimpse of the future, which is what's keeping Habs fans interested in all this. We had, what else is it? We had another little question here from, Claire Capoletti. Sorry. Almost got that completely wrong. Claire always hangs out in all my live stuff. So shout out to Claire, big fan. What did you think about Drouin tonight? Now, I'm an unabashed Drouin fan. Now, it's more about the person. I like the person, and I'll be honest, this is where I name drop. Me and Joe, we talk a lot. He's a really good person, and him being open about mental health has helped me. So I appreciate him for that. But that goes out the window when you're talking about hockey. So what did you think about him? I'm going to lead you off with, let's talk about what he did on the power play.
Yeah, I liked his play on the power play. I don't think there's anything to complain about. He was more confident, I think, than I expected him to be, just because he hasn't played that position often with the Canadiens. Even strength, I didn't notice him a ton, but when I did notice him, it was usually in the offensive zone, which is a good thing for Drouin. And I thought he was all right. The one play that I did notice him in a bad way was there was an extended shift, I believe, near the end of the second period. Maybe it was at the end of the first period, and I know that Stu Cowan blamed it on Slavkovsky, but it was a Drouin.
Blames everything on Slavkovsky.
I know, but it was actually a Drouin bad pass inside the Canadian zone up to a Wild player at the point that created the entire situation. But that's just Drouin sometimes. You take the good with the bad. I think he's still working through things, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. The one shift I thought 5-on-5, just okay. You're going to be playing, on a line. He's still positive side of everything. I'm looking at his stats right now. He was good. He played 9 minutes, 5-on-5. What are you going to expect? Power play, I think he's been quite good, and it opens up lanes so that Suzuki can take advantage of them. Or tonight, putting Suzuki in that shooting position, even before that one timer that went in, he set him up perfectly before that. And also what I really liked, and this is the thing Drouin gets criticized about a lot, and I agree, sometimes the effort's not there, but he gave away a puck, and I forget if it's the first or the second, it was a controlled entry attempt, and he lost it, but immediate back check, recovered the puck, got it back in the offensive zone, and created an extended shift in the offensive zone. And that's what you want to see from Jonathan Drouin. Again, like you say, Drouin in the offensive zone is a really good sign. But what you said there about what she's, just accept it. That's what we have to do with Jonathan Drouin. He's a 50-point goal scorer, point getter per season for $5 million. That's the price. He can't pick his goalie out of a police lineup because he doesn't go in the defensive zone, but you know that. And he still makes a positive impact. People saying you want to, put him a healthy scratch over Michael Pezzetta. Listen, that's crazy talk right now, because this guy, it will make more of an impact than Pezzetta, who I love. And I think actually does a pretty good job in the fourth line. But, right now, Jonathan Drouin is the least of the Montreal Canadiens' concern, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think in an ideal world, the Canadiens would like to get Drouin's confidence going, get him producing a ton of points before the trade deadline. I know that I think it's Curtis Lecision, the head pro scout for the Colorado Avalanche, has been, I believe, at almost every single Montreal Canadiens game this season. I don't know if it's necessarily for Drouin, but I don't think that there's it's not a coincidence, or it's not a coincidence. Yeah, it's not a coincidence that he's there, for every Drouin game, and Drouin and McKinnon clearly have that long history. Is Drouin a top line player? No, but could
put him on the Avalanche?
Put him on the Avalanche and say, if they had a line like Drouin, McKinnon, Lehkonen, where Lehkonen's carrying the bag defensively, right? And you could just let Drouin and McKinnon have fun, and Lehkonen's there to finish off plays. Then they can move Rantanen and Landeskog down to their second line to insulate their very weak by comparison to last year's second line center. No offense, but Nazem Kadri's gone, right? Yeah, they could be right back into the Stanley Cup final, and we could see Drouin and Lehkonen, clinking their cup rings together, which would be great, because I feel like as much as Drouin is not the player that the Canadiens wanted him to be, I think Drouin, the person, is still a fantastic person, and I would be very happy to see him have success and be happy.
No, absolutely. And we've talked about this. I mean, maybe we'll call our buddy Eric and tell him how Drouin is on the positive side of expected goals and whatnot. We have a direct line in there. So, you brought Lehkonen to glory, and now it's time to bring Jonathan Drouin, who, one thing I want to talk about right before we leave, because I think we're out of time. We had a lot of fun here, and I wanted to thank everyone in the chat. I'll get back to that, but go watch junior hockey games, because I'll tell you why. When I used to live in Ottawa, I could go watch the Gatineau d'Olympique for $9. And every single time the Mooseheads were in town, I got to watch Jonathan Drouin, obviously Zachary Fucali, Nathan McKinnon, and Jonathan Frick were on the same line. Those three were on the same line, and it was some of the best hockey. There was Émile Poirier, Martin Réveil, really good hockey. So go support your junior hockey, and you're going to see some high-end players for $9, $10, $12. All right.
We also got to tell everybody, smash that like button, eh?
Done. Andrew's done. Oh no,
are you there?
Yes,
Mark?
Absolutely. Actually, it's saying my internet's disconnected. All right, let me know if I'm back. I'm just gonna keep talking until I'm back.
You're back, Mark. I can hear you. Yeah.
All right. That's my classic NDG internet. Okay, so if you come to NDG, get Starlink, because you're gonna lose your internet every 2 seconds. But at least I didn't drop. Right? I didn't drop, so that's good. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, please subscribe to our channel. I would really appreciate it. We're going to do this, a lot throughout the season. I do want to thank everyone, Sarah, Paper Dolls, Denis, Claire, for coming in. Let us know what you want to talk about next time. Andrew's going to be hosting. You can follow us on Twitter. Shout out to Robert for moderating this. Our faithful Robert, one of my favorite people in the entire world. And that's it for now. Merci tout le monde d'avoir venu. On se voit à la prochaine fois. I forgot, I'm not doing this in 2 languages. We'll see you next time. That's it for Game Over Montreal.
Oh, one last thing. Arbor Jackai told me that the next person who gets Slavkovsky, this is what they're getting.
I would rather face Arbor Jackai than a Sith. I swear to God.
You mean you'd rather face a Sith than Arbor Jackai?
Oh yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you what, at one point when I was asking Caden Gooley, I'm like, would you rather face 50 Cole Caulfield size Arbor Jacki or one Arbor Jacki size Cole Caulfield? And he's like, I don't want to face Jacki at all. This was last year. He's like, he told me he's the scariest guy, and this is before he dummied Massicut and our good friend Zach Cassian. So happy Arbor Jacki dreams to everyone, and we'll see you next time.